today's guest, Charme Taksony. Hello, Charme.
Hi.
All right, great. Now, Charme comes from a local family, and we've shared some time together over the week with a few different discussions, and she's got an interesting story, and we want to kind of bring some of that out. So Charme, tell us a little more about your story in growing up here.
Okay, well, my story and connection to Paia starts in the early 1900s. So my mom on my mom's side, her grandparents moved to Hawaii from the Philippines to work in the plantation system. So both her mom and dad were born on Maui. Her dad in Makua, but her mom in Paia, and that was in the early 1900s. So my family has been in Paia for over 100 years. And then their story takes turns, and so my mom ended up being raised in Pu'unene at the right next to the mill there. And so we ended up back in Paia in 1988 when Maui County bought back. So Skill Village was where all the skilled workers lived and all different ethnicities, and it was all old plantation homes. And in the 80s, they had one program and they were going to replicate it, but Linda Lingle put a stop to it because she wanted to not compete with developers, but they bought Skill Village from A&B and they had it as affordable housing. So my parents were on the list for affordable housing for the Maulani development, which never happened or took so long. And in 1987, they called my parents and said, your name came up. It was a lottery system. And I remember being 9 years old and driving around Skill Village, and there were a few old plantation homes left, and the rest were either empty lots that you could buy, or they were building tract homes that you could buy. So most of it was leveled. And so we drove around Skill Village and they picked the lot. And my dad bought the lot for $20,000 and he built it. He took a construction home loan and built the house. And we moved in 1988.
Mind if I jump in there real quick, Charme? So this is interesting. So when we did our research, Charme, we had thought the Skill Village was developed under an experimental housing program under Lingle, right?
Before Lingle.
Oh, before Lingle, we
Oh,
understood
around that time.
it was right around that time
Right
when
around
she
that time.
was the mayor.
No, it was Tavares. So Hannibal Tavares.
Okay.
Because we still have the letter that my dad wrote to Hannibal Tavares to say thank you so much, because this is the only way my family would have been able to buy a home. And he has a letter thanking Alice Lee because she was the champion of affordable housing, which she still is, because, and I'm gonna jump ahead, the county, if you guys are familiar, put up this ADU grant up to $100,000 because they're short on housing. And Alice Lee is the person sponsoring it. And my father and I testified. And right now we are in the final stages in Skill Village because I ended up back there after all these years. I'm 47 now. And the house that my dad built in 1988 housed all of his children and grandchildren. My brother lost his house in the Lahaina fire. They came back, 11 of us there. And we are recipients and still waiting for the money because they have legal issues to add on to that house in Skill Village that he built. So
let me jump in again. So you came back, your family moved away, they moved back in here. And what was so important about Skill Village is Skill Village was the place where people could buy affordable homes.
Because we were on Maui all that time. But living in Kahului, waiting for affordable housing. And when they came up with this program and their name was on the list and they called them up, and all of the people in Skill Village, most of them worked at Paia Mill. And if not, they were working in this area. And just before we got on here, we're talking about at that time, there were many jobs available, entry-level jobs available for teenagers and younger ones or young adults in Paia town, because there was the grocery stores like Horiuchi's and Nagata's and Paia General and the ice cream shop and the restaurant. I worked at Picnics. So most of my parents did not work at the mill, but many of my friends that I grew up with, their parents worked at Paia Mill until it closed. Okay. And so one of your questions was, how did the closure?
Right. Well, before we jump into that, so the Paia the skill village was a place where skilled workers that worked at the mill would live. That was why it was called Skill Village, I assume. In your case, you were a deserving family. What does that mean, right? That were looking for an affordable home. At that point in time, it was unaffordable to buy a home, very
Yeah.
much like today.
We would not have been able to have that home, that a home we couldn't afford. And my dad had looked, we had traveled to the Big Island to buy land there, but it was all lava. It was very cheap. And, you know, we wanted to stay on Maui.
Right.
But they were saying, I don't think we can stay here. You know, we were renting, we could have kept renting, but he wanted to, you know, he wanted to have his own home and have a generational thing to pass on to his children and
Mhm.
grandchildren.
Yeah, and they still have, and that's the same home that you guys are living in today.
Yes, that home has housed all his 4 children. He was able to be the only person working. He had his own business as a repairman. He was able to support his family of 6 with just his income,
Mm.
you know, because of that project.
So his legacy was to make something, and I would say it was a success. I mean, it was a success.
So yeah, and so when we went back to testify, he said, "Thank you so much to Alice Lee because she was in 1980s always pushing for affordable housing, and she's still doing it now. She's still, and I know there's no great politician. I'm not like hired by her, you know, to say that, but there are people on Maui that have been fighting for many years and decades to have affordable housing for people that are from here and the workers and the everyday people. There are people, and even yourself, we talked about your plan, and maybe I'll get into that later. There are people that want that and are trying to get the help. And that's why I'm willing to come here and talk about it and be on any committee, because, you know, the people that are trying to do that, that have the,
Yeah,
you know,
share
the
with us,
expertise.
Sharma. We spoke about how people would get involved, and maybe a few ways of how we can get,
Yeah.
because people want to get involved, but we're so busy trying to do something.
Yeah.
How can we do that? And what were your
Well, I'm hoping,
your
I
thoughts?
can't see. Are you able to show me like some of the people that are on here? Because I feel like I would know some of them.
Okay, uh
Let's see.
okay. Well, there's
Trickle down, press that arrow
okay,
down.
the arrow down. Okay, we're gonna come look for you guys.
Are there any people that I know or that know me? Like, I feel like I know that person.
Seven,
There are enough people that are from here that are my age-ish
mhm.
that want to work together. And I would say like the ultimate can be if we can create a win-win, right? I'm a teacher at Maui High School. I can't afford to buy a home. And I was able to, with the help of that grant, build an addition, a 500 square foot addition to my parents' house.
Mhm.
But there's enough people my age that are from here that, you know, went on to higher education or not, that want to be involved. And so what I'm asking is that whoever is on here, that if we can come together and have a committee that we can give our mana'o and our insight onto or what we would want and support each other, because this company that's coming in, they have to make money, they have to have a business, they have, you know, right, everybody has their agenda, but I truly believe that there can be a win-win where we all work together and we, you know, I mean, it seems like simplistic or naive, but I truly believe that. I work at the high school. I went to Maui High School. I teach in the classroom that I was in. And I tell the kids the same thing. Time goes by so fast. And pretty soon, I have seniors this year. Very shortly, you're going to be in the real world. And they're very concerned. There's not enough jobs on Maui. There's not enough, you know, a lot of them don't drive anymore. And if we can have places like this where, like my son is 16, you know, he can walk down the road and work in this village area, and we can access the things in this village area. We can keep our kids here and we can afford to be here. So I just really passionately feel that, you know, with the backing of people like Councilman, you know, Hodges, all of us Paia people that are from here, or from Maui, that there are ways to, you know, like some of the questions you had, like, you know, the closure, when they closed the mill, that was when many of my friends whose parents worked at the mill could not afford their house anymore. And that's when people started leaving Skill Village and people from outside started buying it. And then the prices went up and up and up. And so the closure of the mill really affected a lot in Paia. So, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s was awesome, was amazing, you know, and our kids today do not have that same life. We all know what, just the way of the world has changed so much, and they're struggling and they want to stay here. And a lot, the high schoolers tell me they're very pessimistic about the future. They're like, we can't afford anything. There's not good jobs. And so everybody has their bias and their perspective and point of view. I always come from family and as an educator, like my bottom line is like, we have to think long term, right? We can't just think like what's going to make money for now, or what's going to be like, what are we doing right now? We have to think long term.
Mhm.
And our children are the long term, I feel, right?
Yeah.
The business has to make money. There has to be something that can sustain itself. But having the community involvement and having the things that the kids and because they're going to grow up and hopefully stay here and be I'm hoping that this development can provide entry-level jobs for our kids,
100%.
that they can do apprenticeship and mentoring, and then they can on the job learn those. You talked about 3D printing, and you talked about mill work, and they can, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but that's just I envision.
Let me just jump in. I mean, so this is perfect, right? So what Charme shared with us, I'm just going to recap real quick, is, she grew up in a family, grew up near here. Because of the experimental housing program of Skill Village, her father was able to afford and support a family, and he had his own repair business. And certainly that repair business was viable, was sustainable because of the mill and the 3,000 workers that used to be here, and the homes and the needs that go along with that, right? So you see a large manufacturing center brings with it all the avenues that people can support themselves and communities can support themselves. So real quick, I just like to segue from here. We kind of segued at why a mill and how a mill can support local families. We're calling this a mill, but what is it exactly that we want to do here? And I'm just going to throw a few quick bits there. So we're definitely working with a few groups, some of them are mainland, to bring some of the best management practices of 3D printing, of polymer 3D printing and metal 3D printing and the various 3D printing processes to Maui. And case in point, some of you may have learned that we are developing a waste plastics to products industry or company, just keep it simple, where we take the local waste plastics generated on Maui, brought here from the ocean, comes to Maui, and we turn that plastic into a usable product. Now, that's a very low-skilled, low-brow technology. I was sharing, we chop up the bits of plastic, we melt it down, turn it into a extruded wire or thread, and then that thread can be used with high-tech 3D equipment to then produce, lawn chairs for the resort community and tables, and anything polymer, anything plastic can then be made. Has to be designed, turned into CAD drawings and CAD's language, and then that sent to a 3D printer for processing. So, like, you can imagine, we're talking that her kiddos that she teaches can then look to the future to be part of a advanced high-tech solution for some of the jobs they want to look for, whether it be design or marketing or anything that a business needs, right? And all of the structural, if you're in the building side, you have to build the business. Or if you're in the construction side, you got to build the structure, all the way to the marketing and developing of products and development of those. And so we kind of talked real quickly, Charme, about what you thought, like some of the things that we needed. Like, this is a big project, right? And we have so much history here. I mean, what I mean by history, we got papers and pictures and maps and drawings from like the early 1900s. And what we want to do is turn those into a digital library that we can house on a website or on maybe our website. And you were talking about how to get the community involved in some of those things.
Right. So my idea, and again, I come from the educator's viewpoint,
Right.
but I think that it's a great project for a high school student, a college student, people that are even retired to volunteer, to get that digitized, because the less time that you have to spend doing those things, it'll speed up the process to get the village done, right? So delegating I mean, and not just volunteer, but really looking at it as working together, right? The
Mhm.
community working together to showcase the history of this place. So hopefully your village will have a little museum area, like how they have the Pu'unene Sugar Museum, to honor the people, with the maps and with all of that, to honor the people and the history of it. I think you're taking on so much. When I look at your map, you guys have so many things you want to do.
Mhm.
And again, my appeal, and I hope that if I can reach how many people I can, that's still more than you can. But if whoever is on the call now, even if they just had a handful and put it out there, right, we can exponentially
Mhm.
get things done and work together and find people that are willing and able and wanting to do this, because it's, again, long term, right? It's going to benefit the different groups of the interest groups, whatever you call stakeholders. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
The different stakeholders, right? You have the business, you have the community, you have all the different stakeholders. And I really feel that we talked about buy-in, right? And buy-in comes from the fact that there is a need that is filled and people aren't feeling taken advantage of. People are feeling like I am contributing willingly and I want to do this. And so, again, I am willing to do my part to reach out to the people that I know, to my students, to my community. I talked about we do a history day project, and
Mhm.
students, they pick something on the island, they showcase the history and they research it, and they have a history day fair, and they get to judge, and the winners go to the state and the national, so things like that. I have a lot of ideas when it comes to that part of it, but really everybody else has their own a special interest group that they have a connection to. I have like a lot of the education piece and the school
Mhm.
piece and the young ones. But that's so limited, right? There's so many different, we say industries, right? I'm in the education industry. There are people that are in the construction industry and whatever else, right? And I feel like if we can come together and put those down on paper and put it to, like, and I want to say committees, because really you need groups of people that, or is it think tank? Is that the word? Think tank, brainstorming. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
The more minds that come together, and I really believe we can do this. And there's going to be things that they think of that I would never have thought of, or they have or knowledge that I would never have,
Mhm.
that I'm just saying, oh, do this and do that. And they're going to say, wait a minute, or this is a better way to do it. Like, we all know that there are people that know way more than us about different things. So
Right.
that's why I'm saying when you talk about the community coming together, because the more point of view and perspective you have, right? Because not one person has all of that.
Right, right. So let me just kind of cover what we've shared so far. So we started off with an advanced manufacturing village and kind of what that is, or what that is to us anyways, and the components of a village. And then that village is very much about people, right? And then we introduced Charme, who comes from the local village, and father from the local village, and still lives in the home that her father built. And it was built because of an experimental housing project. I believe it was under Lingle, or there about that time frame. And then there was supposed to be a second village. That's where the new housing
Yeah. So
development was
Hannibal
supposed to be.
Tavares started it. And then when Lingle came on, she said, no, we're not going to do any more of these, because she did not want to compete with developers, with private developers.
Okay.
So she put a stop to it. That was, yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah. So, it just shows that there's a lot of need, and it's only going to be solved with a multitude of counselors. Uh, so we talked about that. We talked about her coming as a family, being supported here, her dad being supported, the closure of the mill and how that affected families, and families moved away. They could not afford their homes, right? In Skill Village, in a place that was meant to be affordable.
Mhm.
And now we have today's market is just, uh, you know, uh, through the roof. Who can afford what local starting ground level
Yeah. The
person
house
can
across
afford
of
that?
us is about 800 square feet. And there was a bidding war and it sold for 1.25 million. A house with the original carpeting from 1988. It was a wreck. And it became a bidding. It was listed for 798 and it sold for 1.25. That's ridiculous.
So yeah, I'm not trying to get into the housing market or the housing questions, but yeah, these things drive the community, and our housing market is definitely warped as it was because of the outside, because it's paradise. Everyone wants to come live here, right? But how can we then take this paradise and bring some reality back to it? And I know there's a few different arguments on the table for housing, but on our side, we don't see it as just a housing problem. We don't see it as just a work problem. We don't see it as just a community problem. It's really a holistic, collective problem that we all have, and it's really only going to be solved if we all work together to build these little villages. I mean, Charme said, what if we had more than just one little village? You know, whether we can walk to work, you can have the apprenticeships and learn, and you can do the work on site, and your mom and dad can drive by and honk the horn and wave at each other, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing to think about. And why can't we have more of these? And this is something that as we grow this, we hear this coming up and up again, and we're excited to be part of that process.
And if I can just add in there, I'm excited too, because I don't know are these all people who were not here last meeting?
I don't know. I don't.
Oh, okay. So
assuming,
the guest from last week, Rod, I know the family, and what we're talking about is that change is going to happen, right? So we want to be there, informed of what change is going to happen, being able to give our input, share with each other to make the change productive and not one-sided and not a negative thing, because Maui is going to change. You know, when I was growing up, the population of Maui was 75,000 people, right? When I was in high school, it's now about 165. So it just so happened, it's going to change, right? There's other developments in Paia that are in the works. It's going to happen. Yeah. So as much as we can be working together to be informed and then help out, you know,
stay ahead of it. Yeah. That's great. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, great. All right. So then, we talked about the closure of the mill. We segued that into what we can do as a community to help build this back. And so, okay, so my partners and I, we own this place. And all three partners are all in lockstep and developing something that makes sense, not just something for us, but something that, and as we get to know the history and the families like Charme's, we're just blown away with the ingenuity that went before us, and realizing that we're not doing anything new, but we're just continuing the legacy and the intelligence and the hard work of 150 years of manufacturing here at the mill. And we believe manufacturing is that one key element that helps to support the community, so a community can have that binding glue, if it were. Well, Charme, I want to thank you for, sharing your thoughts and sharing your family here with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for having me.
And so hopefully, once we get our act together, we're going to have a newsletter, and we'll be able to share Charme's story, maybe just a few more details.
That's a Paia family right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, aloha. Okay, great. And then, and we can share those stories, and then we can, develop that website where people can go back and start, having a online collection source for some of this history that we have in-house right now. So now that I've said that, I'm going to move to a few questions. Hopefully there was many questions. I'm going to pull it up now. Okay. How do we do this? All right. Questions, drop them in the chat. First time here. Sorry, who are you? What is the org? Okay, Greg Koch. I think that's how you say it. So first time here. Hey, welcome, Greg. Sorry, who are you? We have the ownership group of the Paia Village company, which owns the mill, is myself. I am originally from New England. My partner, he's from Old England. I'd like to say that. And my third partner is Peter Savio. He's from the Big Island, born and raised here in Hawaii. That's kind of who we are. We can get into a lot more than that. What is the org? The organization is Paia Village Company. That's who we are. And we've also developed what's called MAMAPOR, Maui Advanced Manufacturing Alliance. That's a 501c3 to help support building of these advanced technologies like plastics to products, like 3D polymer printing, where MAMAPOR can then take in and build these companies that others can then take over. We can spin those out as actual companies, viable companies. All right, that's my question. Okay, you can use mixed plastics from the ocean to make 3D printing thread. Yeah, I mean, that's a question, but yes, that's exactly right. Taking plastics from the ocean, we could have a trailer or a box truck taking waste plastic and turning it into the raw material, which is the thread. And that thread then gets transported. That thread is a product that can be sold all over the world to people who have 3D printing machines that use polymer 3D printing, and of which we're going to make this mill site a center of excellence for 3D printing. Okay, have any questions? Drop them in the link here. Okay, how much of the Paia Mill land is eligible for housing out of the 45 acres? Good question. That's from D. Moore. So the mill site is about 20 acres, and then the land that's around it, which is a separate property that we own, is 26 acres. Out of that property, we would like to make the whole 26 into affordable housing, but due to land use regulations, we can use about 14 of those acres. And so then with some of the ideas and some of my third partner, Peter Savio, who is a affordable housing developer, he has ideas that once we have that up and running, we hope to be able to create more homes. That's the short story. All right. Does this project have the needed entitlements to build housing? For the housing project, the simple answer is yes. It's interim zoned reserve with ag land next to it and a part of it. And so we have been given the green light for a housing project there. Would all the housing qualify as affordable under government guidelines, or will there be market priced housing as well? Well, our little group, not to make this all about housing, but it seems like it is, our little group is very focused on making 100% affordable, and possibly using some elements to tie the deed towards wages, so that when in the future, it doesn't sell for the 1.2,
And-
it sells for.
Right. And what I said too is that wouldn't it be cool if the 3D printer place helps to make houses, right? That would be a very
Yeah, okay, so
cool
she
thing.
she brought that question, can we use that technology, that same 3D printing technology, whether it's metal, whether it's concrete, or whether it's polymer, plastic? Can we use those to make homes? And so I'm working with Joshua at the county, and Joshua has just put us on this. We're working with 3 different companies with all of it, both metal, both concrete, and both polymer printing to build homes. And so there's,
So that it truly can stay affordable, right? Because
yeah.
the reason why, and I just looked it up, the reason why construction and Maui has the highest construction cost in the state. And it's
So-
because everything has to get shipped here, right? And so it's the materials, it's getting the materials here. So if we can make materials on site, because even modular homes are getting shipped here, right? So using, and who knows the time frame of that, but that person had the same question I had
Yeah.
about the traffic.
Yeah, all right, so that was NK Aloha. Let me go back to that question. Let me go here. Where did it go?
I had the same question about
Will there be
traffic.
will there be alternative roads besides using Baldwin Avenue? Yeah, we all have the same problem. We're all living here, we're all working here, and we have the same concern. We don't want more traffic. But there are solutions and in the works, and the landowners that are on this side of Baldwin Ave are working together to develop a solution. And so, God willing, that will come through in the short term here. It needs to. So that's a good question.
Because if you're going to have housing and businesses, it's going to add to that crazy. I don't know what happens at 3 o'clock every day, between 2 and 3 o'clock. The traffic is up Baldwin past the old, what is it called? The old Paia pit stop, right? It's going up the road. So it's already at that point. So adding more things here is going to add to that, right? So if when I was a kid, we used to take the cane roads. We used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And it goes from behind the mill all the way straight through, to Kahului. The roads are there. So I always said, why can't they open the old cane roads? There's no, we used to come around the corner and the huge turner hauler would almost run you over. And I know some people, I know some people on this hall are knowing what I'm talking about, right? Like the Kealoha family that we all did that. So there are the roads there.
Yeah, so but we think that there's a good solution. I'm going to read D
Oh
Moore's
yeah.
first. So D Moore, this question from D Moore: what is the live, work, walk, learn concept? Well, great question. I'm glad you asked. So in the live, work, walk, learn, Paia was built on the live, work, play model, right? Where you owned a business, you lived above it, and you lived and you worked and you played in your own neighborhood. You didn't go to the west side, north side, south side, east side, and that's a lot of communities. That's what I hear. I'm not from here, so I'm just repeating what people have told me. So we have the same sort of concept, a live where people live close to where they work that they can live, they work near where they live, they can afford where they live here in town. Live, walk, work, learn. So you can live, you can walk to work, you can work where you live, and you can learn. We're going to have apprenticeship courses and different 3D printing workforce training modules where people can learn a new technology and learn a new skill. So this is all part of growing and becoming a village, and everybody learns and grows and bobs and weaves together. All right. Okay, why don't you read this one, Charme?
Okay, from Kealoha, isn't the mill designated as historical? That's why state didn't want to build a road through it. I have no idea.
Well, no, as far as I know, Mr. K. Aloha, Mrs. K. Aloha, I'm sorry, I don't know. So the roads that come through the mill, there is some government road bits of road there, but it doesn't go all the way through. The rest of the roads are owned privately from the big landowners to the west of us. And so it would need to be a concerted effort, a purchasing of land and a building of road. There's a developer to the north of us also that's and like I say, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of discussion about what we can do as these three principal landowners in this area to help alleviate the egress and the incoming and outgoing of
Yeah,
traffic.
well, and even, in cases of emergency, right? That's a big issue, as we saw with the Lahaina fires, is that there are roads, so especially for emergency use, to just open it for emergency use. I mean,
Yeah,
and I don't know the codes and all of that, but that's a bigger discussion, you know.
right. The other question was, let's see. Okay, you want to read that one again,
This
Charmaine?
one here,
What's that one? That one's from Stacy Moniz.
what about using plastics from the landfill? Also, could you use some of that plastic to build
I
homes?
love that question. So, Stacy, yes, you're on the right track. So, we are super excited to be partnering with some of these groups that are so excited about 3D printing. And people say we have a plastics problem. Well, to be honest, we're way beyond that. It's not a problem. It's almost like now we have a plastics resource, right? We have a Hawaii grown resource, unfortunately, is plastic. And we can take that plastic, use it as a resource, convert it into a usable material, and then use it to print homes, to print windows and door jambs and things that are polymers and plastics, things that are metal, and this can all come from a natural resource, which unfortunately is plastic. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, infrastructure is not great for Paia. Adding more homes will put a strain on it, on the infrastructure. What's your solution to this? So I'm assuming that's like electric and water.
I think
Right?
more traffic, and then if there's more homes, there's more burden on the school systems, and there's more burden on the sewer system and the fresh water. So
And
yeah,
I think, like asking what's your solution to this? I think that for runoffs to going to the ocean, that I do feel like as somebody that's like from Paia, I know the Kealoha family's from Paia too. I think that is our kuleana to bring those to the table and to say to talk about it. But even if somebody, and this is what I'm just thinking right now, right? Even if somebody now owns a land or whatever, I cannot say that they should be the ones to say these are the problems that exist and this is our solution to it. Like we should all be able to say here, let's all identify, when you say infrastructure, we got to say let's say exactly what that is, right? Are you talking name it all, the roads, the water runoff, all those different things, put it down, put it on the board and then we all go through it and say, okay, this is the issue that it's causing, right? Exactly what it is. We know that we live there, the runoff to the ocean or the traffic or whatever, right? That we help to lay it all out and then we all come together and then work to say like, this is going to work, this is definitely not going to work. Because there are some things that when we talk about it, they are deal breakers. They are 100% a no. Oh, Ole, that is not going to work, right? And so, okay, so we got traffic,
Can I
drinks,
just respond to
school
that one
traffic,
too? That one. So,
human traffic.
Kealoha family. So that was another good question. So just high level stuff because we're on this. We have time constraints, I believe. We're doing good.
Yeah,
You know that we don't have the answers, but we're not afraid of the question, right? And we want to be part of that solution.
yeah.
So part of building a live, walk, work village is to cut down on traffic because people can live and work in the same location. And then we can, in this village, there's grocery stores, there's restaurants, there's places where people can stay here, live here, work here, play here, grow here.
And what we talked about
Right.
is like, because right now we're doing this Zoom thing and it's a few people, but having a meeting like at Paia Community Center where you can have the big board and like just let people go walk up and just write down like how you have that list right there.
Mhm.
Just write down on the list. Okay, there's traffic, there's drain, there's the school traffic, there's car traffic, there's ocean impact. Like we got to just be able to like write it all out and all of our minds together because we're all like we're so akamai all together, right? Put it there and then we can talk like in a respectful, like good way, like where I feel like at the end of the day, we got to feel good, right? About what we're doing for our keiki, for our mo'opuna, right? As we go down the line, that when we can have a say and when we can like be informed, all talk about the issues like openly and honestly and respectfully and do it together, then people are going to feel good about it and want to help as opposed to just having a meeting where people come and just like what I'm envisioning, and I've seen this happen before, is at a community meeting, and then people just stand up and just go like, "Hey, there's traffic," and they're just like stand up there and screaming about all the problems. Like we all know there's tons of problems, right? So let's put it out there together in a nice way, and then we're like, okay, these are all the issues. Let's put all of our possible solutions, and then we work through there. That's what I don't want to go to a community meeting where people are all hostile and all pissed off and like fighting with each other like ha ha ha. That's like nobody feels good about that and nothing gets done, and then the good things that want to get happen just get stalled and stalled and stalled. So what I am envisioning is that we have these like bigger meetings where we can come together and write down what was it? Should I go back up? Wait, go back down real fast.
Up, down.
Down farther. Yeah, see, yeah, in-person meeting is good, right? Yeah, so we can come together, but I think that people should agree, right? That this is not time to just come and be like, hey, stupid Howley that came and bought all this land or what, right? It's like, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen. And that's why I said there's enough of us that are from here that have good intentions, that want the good things, and that I really believe we have to work together to be informed, to be involved, and to be part of it. We cannot just say, oh, as your kuleana now, you bought all this, is your kuleana to identify and fix all the problems. That's not going to happen.
Well, just to add on to that, Charme, and thank you for sharing that. Until families stop having more babies and more people, right? Is that when that stops happening, then we're not going to have growth, right? But because there's families grow, and then those families have more families and more families.
Yeah,
there's a need, and maybe you have 3 or 4 generations living.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Yep, it's so true.
Yeah,
because it is a dream
right.
to live on Maui. It's more people want to stay here. Like I don't want my kids leaving. My parents. We were so fortunate we had that. My dad having that house in Skill Village is what allowed his 4 children to stay on Maui. 2 of them went away and were able to come back to that house and then figure it out. Yeah. So yeah, maybe invite other stakeholders, business. Yeah. And that we'll have that big community meeting where everybody can be and be able to look each other in the eye, because it's a small community. And when we see each other in the community, to be able to be like, I don't like that feeling of, we missed a question above.
Did we?
Yeah, we missed the one about, should I go up more? Here, this one here.
This is D Moore. Okay, D Moore. So in this community, this community consultation mandated as part of the development process? So that's a tricky question, meaning if we want to grow and we want to rezone the mill site, then yes, community participation is a must. If we're gonna stay a small footprint and only do just minimal stuff, then there's probably less involvement. But that's not who we are. So we put ourselves out there, we put ourselves online, and we've asked the the tough questions from the tough families, right? To come in and give us their thoughts and their ideas. Why don't you read the next one there?
What is the project's projection of timing when the affordable housing will be created, which was my question earlier?
Yeah, that was a good question. So the affordable housing, there's a bunch of pre-development work that needs to happen, and we're in the middle of that work. If we're in a good place, then we hope to be building in maybe 18 to 24 months. But we want to build smartly. We want to build in a way that we have the density that's correct, we have the roads that are correct, and the drainage and the people and the land and the traffic and all that stuff. All that stuff has to become part of it as part of developing a housing. It just doesn't happen, as you know. So going back to your point of having community discussion, there's going to be a lot of room for that. All right, and then the last bit of it.
What are your plans for the remaining 26 acres that are considered agriculture?
So out of that 26 acres, there's about 12 to 14 acres of that is zoned agricultural. The other half of that, which is 12 to 14, either one, is zoned interim. So that interim portion is going to be the affordable housing project, and then the other side will be the agricultural project.
Okay, we got
Can I keep going down? Okay.
want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So a few bits of points from our team here. They want me to share that we have some upcoming events. One of those events is the on-site tours. So on the fourth week of every month on Thursday, we do on-site tours. And we've had them the last 2 months. That's correct. We're going to have one next week. So if it's not filled up, please feel free to sign up and come on site for an on-site tour. See what we've got to work with, and come give us your thoughts.